What price a world coalition against terrorism? Sri Lanka says all very well, but what about double standards? The West, it says, has been soft on the Tamil Tigers, who've been fighting for the right of self-determination and their own nation. My guest today is the President of Sri Lanka. Has she really been shortchanged by the major powers? President Chandrika Kumaratunga, very warm welcome to the program. Do you think the world has sold you short?
No, not quite.
You're quoted as saying, September the 17th, when countries like Sri Lanka fought against terrorists, developed nations worried only about human rights of terrorist organizations. Wasn't that you?
Yes.
So the implication from that would be that you think you've been sold short.
I didn't use those words quite like that, but yes, I did mention that in a memorial lecture which I gave on the date that you mentioned. Yes, because countries like ours, especially the poor countries, many of them have had this scourge of terrorism for several decades. Sri Lanka, for example, for nearly 2 decades. And we have been fighting wars against terroristic violence almost alone until maybe 2-3 years ago.
So you think there are double standards? You reportedly urged the so-called superpowers to change this double standard.
Yes.
That's what you feel, double standard.
And yes, well, a little bit more than that. It was a long lecture that I gave, and I don't think I have the time to explain all that. But especially in the era of the Cold War, several of the big powers did support one insurrectionary or terrorist organization as against another state or another organization in their own self-interest. And this kind of thing has a short-sighted policy, perhaps.
But there are people legitimately fighting for their rights who are labeled terrorists, Tamil Tigers in some way, although they have committed attacks, huge number of attacks against you, your government, your security forces.
The largest number of suicide bombings in the world have been done by the Tamil Tigers. 1/3 of the total number of suicide bombings the world has known has been carried out by the Tamil Tigers. Sorry.
So you want help from the world on this?
Well, we have been asking for help for a long time.
The LTTE, the Tamil Tiger organization, is prescribed in Britain that help, isn't it?
In the last few years, I must say we are very appreciative that the world has heeded our call. The United States of America was the first Western country to ban the LTTE, and 2 or 3 years later, Britain did this at the beginning of this year.
So you're satisfied with that. But the world is also very concerned about human rights, the human rights policy of your government. Rightly so, wouldn't you say?
Quite rightly so.
Particularly when you say that not once have we allowed any physical excesses against the Tamil people. You said this in a BBC interview the other day. You would stick by that? Not once have we allowed any physical excesses.
Not once have we promoted.
You said, have we allowed any physical excesses against
yes,
Tamil people?
I said this in a very specific context. In the context of what happened during the last government, which was in power fraudulently for 17 years, where the government organized its own mafia and policemen and military men in civil to attack innocent Tamil civilians 5 times over. And the 5th time was a huge pogrom carried out against the Tamil people in July 1983.
The Tamil civilians are being attacked under your rule?
No, well, never.
Never?
Never.
Simply doesn't accord with the facts as laid down. Let me quote you the State Department report on your human rights practices. Since April 95, at least several hundred persons have been killed extrajudicially by the security forces or have disappeared after being taken into security force custody. They're presumed dead. That doesn't accord with your not once have we allowed any physical excesses against the Tamil people.
Well, that's exactly what I was coming to. This is as opposed to what the last government did, where hordes of government mafia ran on the streets, burning down houses, burning down business places belonging to Tamil people.
So you're saying that was intentional under the last government, and you're saying this is just carelessness under yours?
No, that's not what I'm saying. And they burnt people alive. I was witness to some of this. I tried to stop it. Whereas what the type of thing they are talking about is something that happened in 1995. There has been absolutely no violence against the Tamil people or any people at all, encouraged or promoted or given a hand to by my government.
But it happened nonetheless. Or is the State Department completely wrong on this? Is Washington lying?
The State Department is only talking of one incident.
No, it's talking about
1995. No, not lots. Can you tell me what the others are?
Yes, I will.
Can I explain the 95 one? In 1995, there was heavy fighting in the Jaffna Peninsula up in the north, where 80% of the Tamil people of the northern province live. It was completely under Tamil Tiger control. And we tried to talk with Tigers for 8 months. There was a truce, and we were talking with them. We lifted all the economic blockades which were put in by the last government, and they are still lifted. And they broke the truce and started fighting again for no known reason yet. And then we were talking about the methods which were ongoing your security force. In the ongoing military conflict, finally Jaffna was taken back from the Tigers. Several years later, 1 or 2 years later, there was talk that 600, 700 people, young people, had disappeared, and parents began to complain. The government investigated it, quite unlike the last government, and then they found some bodies that had been buried, perpetually by the army. About nearly a dozen army personnel are under arrest for this, and we have taken very serious action.
Mrs. Kumaratunga, according to the State Department, there's this report, 24 pages of it, into human rights practices in Sri Lanka.
Can you quote any others?
Yes. The State Department says that despite legal prohibitions, the security forces and police continue to torture and mistreat persons in police custody and prisons, particularly Tamils. This is in the latest report. It also says that your 1994 Convention Against Torture Act does not implement several provisions of the UN Convention. This results in torture being prohibited under specific circumstances and allowed under others. That's a direct quote from the State Department report.
Well, you do not,
they got it wrong?
You failed to mention that it was in 94, my government, as we came into power in 94, that we brought in those conventions for the first time.
But they're saying they're not being applied properly.
Well, I can't.
Despite legal prohibitions, the security forces continue to torture.
I don't accept that.
Why would they say it if it's wrong?
Well, they have to give exact details of those with incidents, and then we will reply, because I'm personally aware of what goes on, and maybe in some rare instances, 1 in 1,000 cases, you do get mad policemen, and we take strict action against them. There was one woman, as opposed to thousands of them per year, a young Tamil lady who was raped a few years ago by the security forces in Jaffna, and that was the only case.
You're saying one incident. The State Department cites a variety of methods of torture that are used. Electric shock, beating, suspension by the wrists or feet, burning, slamming testicles in desk drawer, and near drownings. They don't say one incident. June last year, I'll give you an instance was cited by the State Department. June last year, police at Kantale, near Trincomalee, arrested and tortured 5 Tamils. 1 died as a result. In December last year, the bodies of 7 Tamils who'd been tortured and killed by the army in Nirusubin, if I pronounced that right, were exhumed after 1 person escaped and notified authorities. A commissioned officer and 8 soldiers were arrested.
Exactly. We have arrested them, and they are before a trial at bar, in the same way that we have put the people who raped this one lady for a trial at bar, which is a very special legal procedure, judicial procedure, which is very much more expeditious than the usual ones, because we want to punish these people.
You want to punish, but they say little progress has been made in resolving many cases of extrajudicial killing